Today is the 24th day of January 2015, and with Alok we continue the Savitri, beginning with Book 1, Canto II, The Issue.
So I would suggest that you were reading something very beautifully. So if you can start with just that passage.
An absolute supernatural darkness falls on man sometimes when he draws near to God. An hour comes when fail all nature's means. Forced out from the protecting ignorance and flung back on his naked primal need, he at length must cast from him his surface soul and be the ungarbed entity within. That hour had fallen now on Savitri, a point she had reached where life must be in vain, or in her unborn element awake. Her will must cancel her body's destiny.
So beautiful. I particularly find this passage very inspiring. As I said, Savitri is the dawn. She brings light, the light of a new consciousness, and scatters the light by her mere presence, by her smile. So there are so many things in Savitri, and one of the things that every night ends with a dawn. And every crisis ends up with an awakening to our own strength, to the light within us. But there is only one thing we need to remember, that when everything outside is crashing around, falling apart, and there is no prop, no support to hold on to, that is the moment when we have a chance to turn within and come in contact with our soul. And I think that's something very, very wonderful. And repeatedly this message comes through. So, she gives a totally new sense to the, meaning of crisis in our life. It's not because of some, punishment for some karmic deeds. It's not because of some evil and ugliness. It's not because we have been bad, but it's because, every crisis is at once an invitation. And when the divine comes upon earth, she herself shows the way. She embodies the light, but as we have seen in the previous canto, she must first conquer the night. And for that, she must take upon herself the burden of the night. So that is what we read in this passage, that sometimes when we draw near to God, we draw with all kinds of our conceptions, our attachment, our longings, our hopes, our desires, and they are slowly stripped so that we can get in touch with the real. The mother used to tell this story that when someone came to India and as he was, flying from the boat to the land, and he had a very, a golden pen which he treasured very much, and as he was coming ashore, this pen fell down and he lost it in the sea. So he remarked, but that is the effect of India. This was something which I was very attached to, and it has been taken away. And it's so true that this is also known as a kind of holy darkness, where all kinds of things are taken away one by one. And at last we discover that we have to hang with the thread of faith, with the thread of aspiration. And then the real delight of the journey begins. So Savitri has also come face to face. She has to confront the fierce enigma, the question of man's life. So that's why Sri Aurobindo, very beautifully names this canto as the issue. So in the first canto, he has given us the backdrop. And in the second canto, he focuses on what is the real issue, not only in Savitri's life, but I think in everybody's life.
Yes, he says.
What is the real issue? So governments and systems and machinery and organizations are trying to solve the problem of man. But what really is the problem of man? He is surrounded by a giant ignorance, as Savitri puts it. And it makes it worse that he loves this ignorance, fathering his pain. And every time pain comes, he wonders why, and he tries to superficially put some balm, some painkiller, some relief, and he feels better, and he goes back into the same ignorance, and again another blow, another pain, another superficial treatment. But as long as we are tied to ignorance, as long as the past drags us with its many, many chains, we cannot really be hopeful of a radical remedy. And I think that is the issue. So right in the beginning, Sri Aurobindo brings it into focus.
Yes.
That look, what really is the issue? And he continues. And also, what is the solution? A point she had reached where life must be in vain. I am sure all of us at some point confront this kind of a state. In fact, this is, in a certain sense, an ideal state to enter into the yoga, where we feel that we are prisoners. All that is around, all that normally one related to, no more brings that that kind of a rasa. Not because we have, we want to escape or because we have failed, but because simply one feels if this is it, then it's not worth it. There has to be something greater, something higher, something nobler.
And it's the beginning of the search.
It's the beginning
for so
of the
many,
search
yeah.
for so many.
Yeah.
Otherwise, one just eats and sleeps and forgets. So that's what life is. Or in her unborn element awake, her will must cancel her body's destiny. Look at the choice of words, unborn element.
Yeah.
There's something in us which strives to take birth, and that's what is called in yoga as the second birth, spiritual birth. That is the true baptism. It's not about just giving a name and, just going to a temple or a church and coming back with a new name. It's about the birth of, as the Vedas put it, it's the birth of Agni which has to be fostered like a child. Something very sacred. And when that awakes, it turns everything topsy-turvy. All the values go upside down. All that we felt is we cherished, we held on to as something so important to us, that changes and something else begins to take its place.
And Mother often says, take care of the flame I have lit in you.
Oh, that's
in
the
you.
most precious part. Most precious part.
Yeah.
And that alone has the power. And look at, cancel the body's destiny.
Yeah.
We all talk about the soul's destiny. And so far yogis have spoken about the soul's eventual destiny of merger into the divine. But Sri Aurobindo, right at the beginning, without any covering, he is revealing what Savitri is about. It is not just about the soul's destiny, it's also about the body's destiny. Because as long as the body remains constituted by the material and the technology of ignorance, or the ignorant nature responding to lower nature, birth upon earth will always be a cause of suffering. Even when inwardly one is uplifted, still one has to face the same struggle as far as the physical body is concerned.
Yeah.
And so Savitri has reached that point. And that's why, look, the inner significance of Savitri. I mean, the problem of death has been tackled by many, many yogis. And normally the solution is, one, detachment. Second, instead of this earthly life, choose a material escape or an immaterial paradise or a heaven beyond. And that option Savitri gets. But that's not what she chooses. She chooses Satyavan back upon earth in the body. And that is something very, very beautiful, very powerful, and the crux of Sri Aurobindo's yoga. But what can create this change? For only the unborn spirit's timeless power. It's not the power of any overhead plane, because they are all subject to time. The timeless power is the supramental power, beyond time and space, the transcendent. The overhead planes can give us beautiful experiences, but they cannot cancel. They can uplift us, they can help us, they can heal, they can succor, they can guide, but not this change. Can lift the yoke imposed by birth in time. So time means being subject to all the field of play of forces. It's their field. You can't enter there and say, I'm going to live by my law. Soul is at one level, it knows the divine. But the moment you enter into the field, you are asked to put a bandage over your eyes. You are asked, you are handcuffed and said, now you live.
Yeah.
That's the law of this place, like prisoners. And you have to accept because you cannot otherwise be there, like the laws of different places. So this is the law of earthly life. And what is it that can lift the yoke imposed by birth in time? Only the self with a capital S.
Capital S.
That builds this figure of self. This figure of self. What we think is the self is only a figure, a form, a shadow, a reflection, a representation, an image, call it what we may. Can raise the fixed, interminable line that joins these changing names, these numberless lives. The whole karmic machinery, it is at once, it's meant to evolve us actually, but it also binds us. It works both ways. It doesn't allow a swift evolution. All our past, out of habit, they run through, and nature soaks it and repeats it, forever repeating the unconscious act. So even when we want to be free, nature doesn't allow. It goes its own way.
And then he speaks of all of our changing names, our numberless
lives.
How we've lived.
So it's not only in this
No.
particular formation that we have created grooves. The grooves run through God knows how many lives. It also, but you see, the beauty of this, it also opens the door to a future that what we win today as a small little victory, we carry forward, however small it may be. So, it's not like a waste. It goes as a kind of essence and we carry it over.
Coalesced around the psychic being.
Yes, around the psychic being. And these things are there within us. The burdensome heirship to our vanished forms, accepted blindly by the body and soul. It has no say in it. It is told, look, this is yours, take it and go ahead, now live. That, brings a very, once we know this, it also brings a certain degree of generosity in nature. Because we understand people are what they are, not because they want to be like that. They can't help it. It's something which they have just, got it from the past. And we all have our past. Every saint has a past. Every sinner a future. So that's how it is.
I especially love these next 4 lines.
Yeah.
They are so special.
An episode in an unremembered tale. What we think is the beginning and the end is but a chapter.
Yes.
Its beginning lost, its motive and plot concealed. This is the irony of a life.
Yes.
We don't know what is the goal. We don't know where we come from. We don't know where we are going. We don't know what is the purpose of it all. Its motive and plot concealed. The course that the drama is going to run. Plot. A once living story has prepared and made our present fate child of past energies. In the agenda, Mother says something very interesting. And I'm sure you must have seen it, all of us experience it, that when grace begins to act and rearrange your life. So she says normally there is a kind of logic of karma which runs through. But when the grace intervenes, there is a super logic which begins to intervene in this karmic formation. And sometimes many of us experience as if we are living 10 lives together. That's evolution fast forward. And it can be disorienting. And it can be liberating, depending on how we look at it.
Yes.
It's disorienting if we want a very neat, in normal life where, there are some fixed things that people do and then pass away. But as the grace begins to act, the landscapes change, and they can change so drastically because it's a kind of super logic. And she says in this super logic, not only your past is taken into account, this of course is there, but also in the future what you are going to be, that is also taken into account.
Yes.
That Savitri brings. You see, she brings the future, the untold story, into our
Yes.
present and the past.
Yes.
This is something very wonderful. So she is the bringer of the future. And that begins to change things because now that has an effect upon us and not just the past.
I have had the experience where I surely would have had an accident,
Yes,
and that grace made me step back just a little bit and avoid it.
absolutely. And many things which, I remember your own story which you were mentioning about how mother asked you to bring the music of a new kind.
Yes.
And you had no clue about it at that point of time.
No.
So how she brings the future and everything in us begins to then slowly align itself. Right now the alignment is based on the past. It's a formation.
Yes.
She enters into this formation and begins to realign. So whatever is useful for the future is kept and slowly changed. Whatever is no more useful begins to get disowned and discarded. So that's where she speaks of. And few things which have to be worked out, like unfinished curves of evolution, have to be worked out rapidly. So it's so wonderful. The fixity of the cosmic sequences, fastened with hidden inevitable links, she must disrupt, dislodge by her soul's force, her past, a block on the immortal's road. So within us is the difficulty, the obstacle, our own past, the ego, the ignorance which we carry like a burden on our shoulder, like a backpack. The ego is the armor plate we wear, defending ourselves against the light, and the karma, ignorance, is the backpack and a stone on the head. And we travel like that. And grace, for her, Savitri she comes to manifest grace. So she is an embodiment of that. So it's her soul's force. But for us, it is the grace which comes and cancels the karma. So we have to be like Satyavan, surrendered to her. See, the beauty is this whole story of Savitri. She's not doing it for herself. She's doing it for Satyavan. So the mother takes our burden on herself and does it for us.
He uses the word rase
Yes,
twice in
very
17
interesting.
lines.
Yes.
Twice it comes
Yes.
in. Make
Absolutely.
a raised ground.
Clear ground. Everything is gone and something new comes.
Yes.
So this canto, you see, gives a kind of background, and this continued. This is a very wonderful line towards the end again. This whole passage is very wonderful. On the bare peak, where self is alone with naught, and life has no sense, and love no place to stand, she must plead her case upon extinction's verge. Much later, it will come.
Yes.
And she is face to face with the
Yes.
Supreme. And nothing made could live. And he says, human life, even if you uplift, it slides back to the mud. You are standing for whom? Even Ashwapati faces the same challenge
Yes.
on extinction's verge. Alone thou standest at the eternal doors. What thou hast won is thine, but ask no
Ask
more.
no more. Yes.
So she says that, how shalt thou plead the cause of earth and men and lift the burden of the purblind race? So she must plead that case on extinction's verge.
And Ashwapati says, how shall I rest content?
Yeah, so he pleads for us that after having seen this, so this is a double, debate. One is, of course, he has to debate with death, and then she has to convince, if I may use the word, the transcendent to intervene, to intercede on our behalf, to change things. There are two very nice little stories of the mother. Mother says, Kali is always furious. She wants to come and destroy many things. Of course, we are not talking of Mahakali, but Kali. And why? Because he says, so much falsehood, so much falsehood. Mother says, I have a long time to just convince her to stay quiet. And then another case where she says that a yogi came and he was, of course, looking at mother, meditating with her. It was literally the divine embodied. That's how he remarked that she is the divine embodied. And then he looked around, went around, and he comes and makes a remark. Mother, you are wonderful, but the material is not good here. She says, I simply laughed. So look at the way she has taken. If she took a good material only, then it won't be worth the trouble for the divine to come down.
Yeah.
She took not only the good materials, she took the coarsest stuff and said, look, even in this I am going to, on this basis also I'll build a divine life. That is the greatness of Mother. In the world's death cave, uphold life's helpless claim and vindicate her right to be and love. To be fully. That's what life wants. To love without love changing into hatred, bitterness, acrimony, all the things that love is unfortunately suffered on earth. And then look at these lines. Altered must be nature's harsh economy. There's a nice little story in Indian thought about an evolutionary parable, what it means harsh economy. The karmic law can be sometimes so unforgiving. Whereas compassion of the divine, because that's how the law of death operates. You can't go and say, you must be knowing even many rules are like that you may have perchance forgotten, let's say, to keep your driving license in your pocket one odd day. And if the cops catch you, you can't say, today I didn't have my breakfast, I was in a hurry, I'm really sorry, I just forgot it. No way, you have broken a rule, that's it. Here is the sticker. So, that's how the cosmic law many times operates. The story is about a Rishi Mandavya, and Sri Aurobindo speaks about him in one of his set of poems, which he calls his Meditations of Mandavya. So this seer, one day, some thieves have stolen some pearls from a king's palace, and they are running, and the cops are chasing them. And he sees the Rishi meditating in his hut, and he thinks this is the right place, throws it there and runs further. He thinks that maybe, they will not touch him, and later on I can come and pick it up. But the cops see it, and they see the sage, and they find the pearls, and they catch him and take him. And when the king is told that, we have caught the thief, he doesn't even take a look, and he says, put him on the bed of nails. That was the standard practice. And whole night he's put on the bed of nails. Usually the thieves would die by morning. So when he comes in the morning, or the jailers come, they see that he is sitting on the bed of nails and meditating, and they are quite shocked. So they go and inform the king. So king, when he comes and sees, and he recognizes, he says, I am so sorry that, I did this to you. And the sage says, who are you? He says, I am the king. He says, you really believe you can do this to me? He says, but it's a fact. He says, no, 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 no. You have not done this to me. I am going to ask that person who has done this to me. Who is it? He says, I am going to ask death, the law of death, who holds the law of karma. And he goes and asks that, and he says, King, you don't feel bad. You are just an instrument, an occasion. You have nothing to do with this. And he goes there and Yama says, look, long back you had pierced a butterfly as a child and so you have to suffer all this. So he says that, well, in ignorance I had done something and your law is so harsh that I have to suffer in this way and now. So he says, with all the power of my tapasya, I changed this law. Now, this is a very interesting story and an instructive story. Nature's harsh economy.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow. It doesn't say that, okay, fine, I can see that every day you come, you have some sincerity in your heart, therefore I let you go. Even the yogi falls ill, suffers. You see Pavitrada, how much, with blood cancer and then how much his body suffered.
Yeah.
So many who have come. The moment you assume the material body as per Yama or the death, embodied nothingness, it doesn't matter. I don't care whether you are a seer, a saint, a sage, or you are the sinner. I will see whether this body is fit or it's not yet fit. And if it's not, I have the right to take it, to break it, to do what I will because it's mine. And it's a very, very harsh law. So that's how it is. Acquittance. She must win from her past's bond. An old account of suffering exhaust. Strike out from time the soul's long compound debt.
Yes.
So already we start with a backlog. And then we commit fresh foolishnesses. So compound debt. And why do we commit? Because we are ignorant. So you see how ignorance is a vicious, perpetuating cycle. And that's why Shubindra and the mother tell us, if grace was not there, actually humanity would not progress one step further. So many things are mitigated, taken away. There would be no evolution, actually. Because we are in ignorance to start with.
But not only a compound debt, but this heavy servitude.
Servitudes of the karmic gods and the heavy servitudes. They are given the right. And why they are given the right, of course, that's a whole story. But the fact is, the karmic servitude, karmic gods. This slow revenge of unforgiving law, we have forgotten. But what happened 5 lives back, 10 lives back, God knows when, unforgiving. A time comes when the cycle, the energy comes back, goes to the whole universe and hits us. And we don't remember anything. Why me? So it's an unforgiving law. That's how the Buddha put it, that whatever energy is released into this earth will get back. If not today, tomorrow. So that's why, that always release beautiful thoughts, beautiful feelings, hopes, because that's going to come back. But if we have released dark things, even ill will, we may not know. But it circulates many times, it increases in amplitude and gets back to us. So that's how it is a compound debt again. And the deep need of universal pain and hard sacrifice and tragic consequence. So when we look at the lives of many, who have come and did something beautiful on earth, nobody has been spared. Today only I was reading the life of Ramanujam, the wonderful mathematician. So before his birth, his mother had a vision of the goddess, Divine Mother, who told her that I will send a beautiful child in your home, but he will suffer a lot and he will also be very well known. He will create beautiful things, but at the same time he will go through many, many troubles. Now, this child used to get weird formulas of mathematics. I mean, he was literally a genius. And people just couldn't understand this. He was studying in an obscure village in Tamil Nadu, carrying that slate in his hand. Who could have taught him? And one day, some Cambridge professor recognized, and my God, how is he? He's literally seeing into the future. And he made sure that he came to Cambridge, where he left behind his wife. He suffered so much there. He had tuberculosis. His body was shattered. After 5 years, when he came back, he was nothing but a bundle of skeletons. But even on his deathbed, he died very young, maybe 30s or something. But even on his deathbed, when he was approaching death, suddenly a formula flashed into his mind, which he wrote in his notebook. That was discovered later. And people just couldn't figure out what this formula is about. And it took many years, possibly decades, for the scientists to understand, my God, this is literally a formula of infinity. I mean, wizard, literally, shooting beyond the genius. And yet, the body, the law, the pain, the suffering that he went through, and his wife went through. All her life, she remained in ignominy. Toward the end, old age, somebody came to her house and said, oh, you are the wife of that famous mathematician, we want to honor you and all. She said, now, when I needed it, nobody was there. Now, these are facts. So we can't just make it very simplistic that, good people get good and bad people suffer. It's not as simple as that. It's a very, very complex web in which we are caught. Unforgiving law. Out of a timeless barrier she must break. Penetrate with her thinking depths the void's monstrous hush. Look into the lonely eyes of immortal death. And with her nude spirit, measure the infinite's night. So this is the real issue. Because as long as we are subject to ignorance and inconscient, we will be always at the mercy of these karmic gods. Karmic gods, all these gods who weave our fate, they keep it like a debt with them in their record. We forget about it. And there comes a time with that they spin our fate, give it back to us. And when we say, well, we have nothing to do with it. No, it's yours. Please take it. I mean, there's no please also. You have to take it. It's put it into your pocket. So that is what she has come to change. So this gives the real backdrop that, and then of course there is a whole passage where Savitri speaks about, or rather the master poet reveals that how every day approaching, she was moving towards this great event where she must confront death, look into the lonely eyes of death, vindicate her right to be and love. So every day she goes, and how she has been prepared, growing up in that sylvan solitude. So all this Sri Aurobindo beautifully describes that, it also takes us to an idyllic way of life where there was not so much of noise and traffic, and we could probably find some solitude. Now, of course, we have to find inner solitude. But there was a time when one could stand and stare at the sky and feel fulfilled inside. But now, one has to look for a spot of sky which is free, and the stars are still well lit. So, this is how it goes. And then we have this marvelous line, love came to her, hiding the shadow, death. A whole passage of why she is the chosen one. People often use the word chosen one very, very flippantly. It's more like an ego, chosen one. No one knows what it means to be a chosen one. When people used to come to mother and say, we want to serve you like Champaklal. Mother would say, are you sure?
Really?
Do you know what he had to go through?
Yeah.
How much, with what difficulty he has been trained? It's not easy. It's one thing to say, to be chosen one. Yeah. Savitri is not just the chosen one, but the one who chooses, and she takes a human body.
Yes.
And she has to embody the highest love. So she must go through the greatest challenge. And what a description of who she is and what shrine love seeks in the human heart. We so easily use the word love. I think of all the words, it's the most abused term. What men call love is really not love, as Shelley has put it.
Yes.
That's just a fleeting emotion, as death would say. And there is a truth in that. That's why Savitri says, you are speaking truth, but the truth that slays. There is a greater truth. There is a greater love.
Yes.
So look what really love is. Well might he find in her his perfect shrine. You see, since
Yes.
in the story of Shiva, love in its romantic aspect has been burnt away, as the story goes. But without love, creation would cease. So he is told that, look, you will be now Anang, without body. So you become an impersonal, universal force. So his wife, Rati, says, okay, that's good for him, but what about me? I am his partner. You mean I have to suffer all? He says, no. A day will come when somebody would be ready to embody him. That's the time you too can take a human body and once again recreate the story of love. And you know who that embodiment is? Prince Anirudh and Princess Usha, which is again a story which Sri Aurobindo talks about. The abduction of Princess Usha. He has, written about it. And Usha, the bringer of dawn, and she is born in a demon's palace, and Anirudh from the lineage of Sri Krishna. And Niruddha says that it's quite likely that Sri Aurobindo's wife Mrilalini was Princess Usha, and Sri Aurobindo himself in one of his previous incarnations was Anirudh. So you see the embodiment of love, looking for a perfect shrine. And that love is amazing, that whole story. How she dreams of Anirudh and how Anirudh faces all the challenges and the odds to eventually win back Usha and bring her. It's a spiritual story again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we see in Savitri that how she embodies that love. What is the perfect shrine of love? Through all the long ordeal of the race, never a rarer creature bore his shaft, that burning test of the Godhead in our parts. You have to be ready to be burned to ashes. No trace of ego. It doesn't allow a lightning from the heights on our abyss. It is love that leans down into the abyss. That's the origin of love. And Sri Aurobindo, in one of his, there is a Isavash Upanishad where there is a guru-student samvad dialogue. And he says, say not that the love of Ruru, of Savitri, of Rama and Sita does not exist. It is true, it is real. And then he says step by step that people often think love is only about the physical satisfaction, then sometimes it's about vital togetherness or about mental companionship. He says, well, they are steps and stages. But what is that love that leans from an infinitely greater intelligence down below to reach out? What is that love? He himself in his life, we see that. So that love which is like a lightning on our abyss. All in her pointed to a nobler kind. And what is nobility? Sri Aurobindo beautifully describes near to earth's wideness, intimate with heaven. So while everybody feels that she is the one who will give me succor and support, and she welcomes near to earth's wideness, she welcomes them with open arms. Yet inside, even when she is mixing and mingling, she is not losing herself. She remains one with the heights. She brings those heights of glory near to earth. That is the beauty of Mother.
Yes.
Exalted and swift her young, large visioned spirit, voyaging through worlds of splendor and of calm, overflew the ways of thought to unborn things. See, in one line, Sri Aurobindo can majestically reveal to us a whole path, ways of thought. A pathway wherein by thought we can go to a point where thought ceases and drops, and what we have is stillness and the bliss that laughs on the peak. So beautiful ways of thought to unborn things. And then it's a very beautiful description. Just a few lines we'll read. Or maybe you could read,
It is beginning with as in a mystic.
Yeah, wherever.
Okay.
It's wonderful.
Because this was a passage that Amal wrote about to Sri Aurobindo. And he used the French phrase, ne plus ultra, that of which there is nothing higher. And Sri Aurobindo acknowledged it with all his humility and said, yes, that this was from the overhead.
Imagine.
As in a mystic and dynamic dance, a priestess of immaculate ecstasies, inspired and ruled from truth's revealing vault, moves in some prophet cavern of the gods, a heart of silence in the hands of joy, inhabited with rich creative beats, a body like a parable of dawn that seemed a niche for veiled divinity or golden temple door to things beyond. Immortal rhythms swayed in her time-born steps. Her look, her smile, awoke celestial sense even in earth stuff, and their intense delight poured a supernal beauty on men's lives. A wide self-giving was her native act, a magnanimity as of sea or sky enveloped with its greatness, all that came and gave a sense as of a greatened world. Her kindly care was a sweet, temperate sun, her high passion a blue heaven's equipoise. As might a soul fly like a hunted bird, escaping with tired wings from a world of storms, and a quiet reach like a remembered breast, in a haven of safety and splendid soft repose, one could drink back life in streams of honey fire, recover the lost habit of happiness, feel her bright nature's glorious ambience, and preen joy in her warmth and color's rule. A deep of compassion, a hushed sanctuary, her inward help unbarred a gate in heaven. Love in her was wider than the universe. The whole world could take refuge in her single heart. The great, unsatisfied Godhead here could dwell. Here is love.
Here is love.
Vacant of the dwarf self's imprisoned air,
Not
her mood could harbor his sublimer breath.
so narrowness, smallness.
Yes.
Love cannot dwell there.
Spiritual,
That can
that
make,
can make all things divine. Finish to the break.
Yes. This last line we will read. In her, he met his own eternity. This is the shrine of love.